Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2's multiplayer brings out the best of COD's excellent gunplay on an array of colorful maps that largely deliver, and it tones down the pace of movement too, making for a measured experience that certainly rewards speed, but doesn't make it an athletics competition. In this video, we will have a rundown of Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 multiplayer review. Make sure you stick with me to the end. Without any further delay, let's get into it. A detailed review of Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. While Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2's multiplayer is a slick refinement of what has come before, its gun unlock process is messy and excessive, even if it offers plenty of options for all types of players. Oh, and make sure you've got the game installed on an SSD. Infinity Ward clearly wants COD to move in a more methodical direction, eschewing the tricks of the military trade that players in MW1 adopted to outdo each other. The slide canceling, the bunny hopping, the jumping through doorways. Before, you could just sprint about and get away with it, to the point where the more you resemble someone who would consume a Red Bull stew drizzled with honey, then wash it down with a macchiato, the more you'd see success. MW2 tips your Red Bull stew over on your controller and knocks your macchiato onto the carpet. It needs you to calm down and clear rooms with precision. You are only allowed a flat white and packet of pistachios before you strap on your boots. It's a contentious thing, stripping the game of its movement tech and paring it back to basics. And while I've heard many arguments for and against the removal of the likes of slide canceling, I'd honestly say that the game is better off without them. Sure, there are some matches where you're spawning and dying at light speed, but there's a nicer ebb and flow to proceedings, as everyone is largely on a level playing field when it comes to zipping about. Shoot first and you'll come out on top. This might be the first COD in a while where I feel there has been a consistent ratio of time spent alive and doing shooty bangs to time spent with a bullet embedded in my skull. What about the maps in the game? Good maps have helped the game's rhythm too, as it's hard to identify many duds whether you are playing the larger ground war modes, your traditional team deathmatches, or newcomers like Prisoner Rescue. I'm no architectural whiz, so it's difficult to ascertain exactly why the game's maps work so nicely, but they seem to flow well, or at least channel action into spaces which don't feel too restrictive, letting you approach them from more creative angles if need be. In fact, I can pick out a few of my favorites already, like Mercado Las Almas and its colorful corridors, or Crown Raceway that sees you do battle on a Formula 1 racetrack, and I'm pretty sure you will love them too. Here is what I have to say about the game's gunsmith. While the game has chopped away excess in favor of simplicity when it comes to movement, the same can't be said for the gunsmith. This is best summed up by a message I received from RPS VidBud Liam the other day entitled "Having a Very Normal Time Trying to Unlock a Gun in COD," which came paired with a screenshot of an Excel spreadsheet he made to track exactly which guns he needs to level in order to actually unlock the gun he wanted. The age-old adage of "if it ain't broke, don't fix it" applies to Modern Warfare 2's gunsmith, as it's always been fairly simple. You like gun, you play with gun. You get attachments for gun, but MW2 forces you to use other guns to level up your favorite, which means dizzying bounces between weapons as you trace your fingers over their puzzling family trees. Sure, it encourages experimentation and ensures players must experience everything in the game's arsenal, yet in doing so, it exacerbates the feeling of weakness that comes with lifting a naked weapon for the umpteenth time. Not to mention that at the most basic level, it seems like a slightly annoying way to elongate progression and ensure players can't max out their favorite guns as easily. Admittedly, there is something nice about having a wealth of weapon attachments to choose from once you've figured out its complexities, and each attachment seems more meaningful too, as their effects are immediately obvious, owing to the increased heft and feel of Modern Warfare 2's guns. You can't just go slapping on 5 attachments and counterbalance their downsides to create a literal laser beam. Instead, you must be conservative with your options, which forces you to engage with a system that can't necessarily be exploited anymore. The range of weapons on offer covers all sorts of playstyles too, and even if the meta dictates that a handful are the best guns statistically, many are more than viable. And multiplayer upholds COD's title as one of the best around when it comes to multiplayer slickness. From the hit marker noises to the excellent gun feel, you won't find a better blend of arcadey shooting and punchy military warfare than COD. MW2 tips your Red Bull stew over your controller and knocks your macchiato onto the carpet. There is a caveat to the game's smoothness though. I will say that I am blessed with a solid solid rig that is home to an RTX 2070 and more than enough of everything else to meet the recommended system requirements. Not to mention that I still game at 1080p. And yet, MW2's multiplayer ran awfully for me at first, with constant micro stutters that made the game uncomfortable on the eyes no matter how low I turned the settings down. I largely cranked every setting down to zilch, so it looked like my Kindle could run it fine, and I checked my drivers more than Christian Horner at the Monaco Grand Prix. And yet, the problem still persisted. After some online sleuthing and Slack messaging, I narrowed the problem down to my hard drive, a regular 1TB HDD I stored all my games on. Having now transferred MW2 to an SSD, I have seen the frame hitches disappear entirely, and I'm able to slap all the settings back up to high with zero consequences. Honestly, it's baffling that an SSD isn't in the recommended system requirements because it absolutely should be. On the topic of disappointments, the game's Spec Ops cooperative missions return, and they are not great. Only 3 missions are available at the moment, each with 3-star ratings to encourage replayability. The thing is, they each seem like afterthoughts that take a slice of what looks like Warzone 2.0's upcoming map and slap some objectives on it. Before, they were interesting mini missions that emphasized communication between you and a pal. Now they're sandboxy zones filled with the sort of gormless AI that stream up flights of stairs and straight into your crosshairs, or just, well, do nothing. One mission saw Liam and I drive a car about in a manic frenzy, which was fun, but otherwise our communication boiled down to maniacal laughter as we stood on top of towers and dropped everyone in the vicinity. It might sound like I'm pretty down on MW2's multiplayer after all that, but trust me, I think it's a strong time. Aside from a couple of overcomplications, the game still excels at delivering an arcadey shooty bang that's paced well, with a wealth of modes and weapons to satisfy all types of player. Next up, toxic Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 players will be muted in voice and text chat. Play just about any big competitive online game for long enough, and you'll surely run into some toxic players who say offensive things in voice or text chat. Activision is doing a bit more to take on those jerks with more in-depth moderation tools in Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 and Call of Duty Warzone 2.0. When they confirm a player has engaged in toxic voice or text chat, the game's moderation teams now have the option to mute that person in all chat channels. So while their remarks might not warrant a complete ban, players who abuse in-game chat might find themselves silenced. Activision will still rely on users to flag disruptive players through in-game reports. Riot Games, on the other hand, has started proactively monitoring Valorant voice chat for toxicity. Before they start playing Modern Warfare 2 or Warzone 2, players have to read and agree to a code of conduct. This includes an acknowledgement that they won't engage in bullying or harassment, nor make any bigoted comments. In addition, when you report a troublesome Call of Duty player, you'll be able to add more context. The reporting system now includes a dialogue box where you can explain what happened in more detail. Activision says it will use these tools in all future Call of Duty titles. These moderation tools aren't particularly novel. For one thing, Overwatch has long allowed players to type in their reasons for reporting someone. However, there's no doubt that Warzone 2 will have a large player base after that game goes live on November 16th. Having better moderation tools to clamp down on disruptive cretins and offer a more positive experience for other players is rarely a bad thing. This brings us to the end of the video. Thank you very much for watching. Let me know in the comments section if you have any questions. I would be happy to answer you. See you the next time.